Welcome, Dr. Aimie. I'm so excited to talk about your book, The Biology of Trauma. So good.
Oh, well, thank you. That means a lot. I spent a lot of time getting this book just right. So for you to say that you enjoyed it, it actually means a lot to me.
I found it fascinating. Now, we've covered nervous system regulation, dysregulation on the show. Those seem to be really, really popular topics with my audience. But as I read your book, I was like, oh, this is this takes it bigger picture, but also like down to our cells. This was like a connection to this whole concept that we haven't discussed on the show. And I know my audience is going to absolutely love learning more about because it's resonating. This whole resonating so much.
Well, and there's the joy of that, like, yay, it's resonating. And then there's the sadness of that, right? Like, yes, trauma does resonate with people. We
Yes.
are carrying more trauma than what we have thought.
Yes, but I think the reason it's resonating is I think a lot of people are hitting midlife or beyond and they're like, "Oh, this explains so much." It gives them a sort of a sense of like what might be going on, and so it gives them a place to like, "Okay, now I can kind of focus my efforts and there is healing as possible."
And that is very true. And that is, for me, the message of hope. So once I found my own biology of trauma, it gave me direction for where to put my energy and efforts to be able to make some change in my life that I had just not been able to change. I'd been, knocking my head against the wall. Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? Am I just not strong enough? Do I just not have enough willpower? And it's just like, oh no, it's just my biology is keeping me stuck. Got it. And then being able to repair that. So it's, for me, the biology of trauma is a message of hope.
Okay, I love that. Well, then let's start with a definition since it's the foundation of our conversation. What is the biology of trauma?
The biology of trauma is this: the idea that trauma, being different from stress, creates a lasting impact on our mind, body, and biology. It doesn't go away and
Yeah.
it doesn't heal with time. That same biology then creates a loop that we get stuck in so that the inflammation, the low energy, the toxins, all of these changes that trauma may have created now keep us stuck in stress and trauma.
Mhm.
And so, literally, we're trying to get out of a loop that our biology has us stuck in, that our mind alone will not be able to get us out of.
Okay, that's so good. Can you share more about your journey with it and how you got on your healing path? Because you were trained in traditional medicine, you started seeing things in your patients, and like a light bulb was going on, right? That was kind of connecting the dots where you're like, this is beyond like prescriptive. Like, I can't just, right? Heal things the way that we've always done.
We can't do things that we've always done in medicine because people are getting sicker and sicker, and we need to have the newer science that shows us like what all we need to be integrating into their treatment. For me, it actually started foster parenting, and I was just finishing up my no, my master's in biochemistry, going back into medical school, the third year. And I decided to foster parent as a way to give back and have meaning, like use my life and my time in the most meaningful way possible. It ended up turning into an adoption where I adopted Miguel, who was placed with me, but that was not the original intention. The original intention was just to foster parent. And having him come into my home was really what changed everything.
Mm.
There's one thing to study trauma, there's another thing to be in medical school and do a rotation where you go during the day to the child psych unit and see the children there. And then you come home to your nice home where you can have your nice things. And now this was my life. This was my home. I was coming home to this. And what this ended up being was a 4-year-old boy who had only known trauma.
Mm. So sad.
And I had thought that my love would be enough to heal him. Love and time, I thought, were the perfect
Sure.
combination.
Yeah.
Isn't that what we all
It's
only?
reasonable. Yeah.
And when I realized that was not working, that he was actually still just getting worse with time, that's really when I went into a deep dive study on trauma, but starting specifically with attachment trauma, because that's what he had experienced. And so, how do I help him was where I started my journey. Now, what happened is that he was with me for 6 years. At those 6 years, I then adopted him out to another family. And the grief of that was so huge for me that my body went into a full shutdown. I developed autoimmunity,
Oh, wow.
developed chronic fatigue. I was told that I was in burnout from my residency. I was in surgery residency at the time. I was on 2 mood medications for anxiety and depression.
Mm.
And one morning I woke up in 2014 and I could not get out of bed. And this is coming from someone who had run 5 marathons, who biked 100 miles and didn't think anything of it. Like, this was just my natural to be that athletic and active. So for me to not be able to get out of bed, something was very wrong. But I didn't realize how much of my own trauma that I was holding. And I didn't realize that by me trying to just keep going, go back to work, and not allow myself to process the grief of what I had just needed to do, that's what broke my body.
Oh, wow.
And that's what then started my own journey. But mine was a little different than Miguel's. Miguel was 4 when he came into my home. He didn't have all of these chronic health issues that I now had. And so the question that I had was, once trauma has become your biology, is there anything that we can actually do about it? Or is this just what I have to accept as what the rest of my life will be like? And I was hearing a lot of my patients say things like that. Well, I come from a family with, the cancer gene. So this is just my destiny to get cancer. Or they would say things like, well, my ACE score, my adverse childhood experiences score, is high. So this is what I can expect. Of course, this is going to happen. But they had settled for it. They weren't even fighting for anything different, anything better. It was just like, well, this is my destiny because this was my past. So I didn't actually know. I had never met someone who had had this level of chronic health conditions and had been able to heal, reverse, resolve that level of impact of trauma on our body. And so that's when I started studying all of this. And that's when I discovered, and it's at this point actually my own biology that is keeping me stuck in my trauma. So I'll need to do it all. I'll need to do the mind work. I'll need to do the somatic work, and I will need to do the biology work. I can't neglect any of those pieces and be able to have the level of resolution and what I now call repair that I will need in order to get my life and my health back to the degree that I want to have my future look like.
Okay. A lot to unpack there. So with Miguel, you did help him over the course of the time he was with you, and you were able to heal yourself.
Yes. Yeah. So after 6 years, I found all of the pieces that he needed, which allowed me to then know some of the pieces that I needed when it was now my turn.
Yeah.
And then what my journey added to that he hadn't needed was the actual biology piece. I had chronic health conditions by now. I was in my early 30s by then. He didn't have any chronic health conditions. He was a young kid.
But as an adult, not addressed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. You write in the book, you said, while treating thousands of patients over this time with surgical and medical conditions, from autoimmunity to chronic fatigue, from pain, digestive issues, and cancer to addictions, my eyes were opening to the prevalence of unrecognized stored trauma, which is what we're talking about. Through the patterns I will share in the book, I saw the common root for chronic health ailments are bodies stuck in survival biology, blocked from their own natural healing processes. What's more, health systems from stored trauma weren't just happening in those diagnosed post-traumatic stress with post-traumatic stress disorder, but in smart, capable, and otherwise high-functioning individuals, including those who never thought they had experienced trauma. this is really important because I think this happens to a lot of people. It's labeled as maybe burnout or something, but it's so much more than just
Chronic
burnout.
stress, that's another term that I hear a lot.
What did you say?
Chronic stress.
Chronic stress. And there is chronic fatigue syndrome. You wrote about that in the book with, there were
Mhm.
some case examples in the book, which is legitimate. Is that what you had when you couldn't get out of a
Yes.
bed?
Yeah. Yeah. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. That's what I was diagnosed with.
And that's harder to diagnose, right? Because tests aren't necessarily, there aren't really like, here's your blood test
Exactly.
that's
And
going to
that was
say
part of the challenge is I go in and I'm like, what's wrong? They run labs and they're like, nothing seems wrong.
your labs were fine.
Your labs are fine.
Oh, shoot. Okay. I think this is
Uh,
relatable. I think people understand this because a lot of people have this. I've had guests on the show talk about leaving corporate careers that they hit a wall and had to kind of rebuild themselves and maybe kind of stumbled upon pieces of your work, but not this whole integration.
yes. And of all the people that I see, I think women in particular downplay their life experiences. They look back and we have this innate sense of, I'm tough. I can get through anything if I have to.
Yeah.
And we do. And then we look back and we're like, oh, that was so stressful. Not realizing, no, that was not just a stress. That was a trauma for your body at that time. And unless you know that, you wouldn't even know to do the repair. But I would love for them to do the repair now before it turns into a health problem.
Yeah. One of the interesting takeaways that I never thought about is you basically said when you have the trauma, you have to see the cycle needs to sort of finish the loop. Like you
Yeah,
can't just be, otherwise you're stuck and the body can't uh, unburden itself. Can you
exactly.
explain this? Maybe give us
Yes.
an example of
And this
how
is one
this
of
would look.
my favorite things to teach on because it's so contrary to what we've been taught about stress. So the stress biology is like a sprint. So imagine a full on, maybe we're doing a HIIT interval training, right? Like high intensity, you are full on sprinting.
Yes.
That is unsustainable. That's why it's called a sprint. If it were a jog, well, we'd be able to run a lot longer, but this isn't a jog. A stress response is a sprint. And how fast and how far we go determines on a lot of factors. I talk about this in chapter 11, where some of it is based on our early life and our attachment. Some of it is based on our cellular health. How many nutrients do we have? What's our buffer? What's our storage? Or are we already running on empty? If we're already running on empty, we're not going to be able to sprint very long before our body has to make a decision. And that decision is, do I stop you from running or can we rest? But here's the problem. Many women don't stop.
No.
That was me.
Yeah. And
I
your
had
body
all of the
stopped you.
signs.
I didn't mean to
Exactly.
interrupt. Your
My
body
body
literally
had to
stopped
stop
you.
me. Yeah. And yet, as a high functioning woman, that is the most frustrating thing. My
Oh, yeah.
body is betraying me is a phrase that I've heard so many times because their mind has this idea of what we should be able to do. We should be able to be up there. We should be able to do this. We should be able to hold it all together. We should be able to run our families and our businesses and everything. We should be able to. And so we've got this concept that our mind has created,
Yes.
but that's not the reality of our body. And one of the patterns that I talk about from trauma is this pattern of disconnection. Our mind has been disconnected from our body. We spend so much time in our heads. We think, we analyze, we study, and we don't feel.
Yes.
We don't actually feel our body. And when we do, and our body says, I need a rest, our mind is like, no, you don't. You don't get a rest. You don't deserve a rest. Who are you to ask for a rest?
You don't have time to
You don't
rest.
have time. Let's
Yeah.
grab another cup of coffee. Let's go grab a bag of M&Ms. Let's go, let's do a quick jog in order to get some energy and keep going. And so this is why women have so much stored trauma, not even realizing it because they've just been considering it stress, but you can't push through stress to that degree. You cannot push through stress. Stress is a sprint. And so once you reach your capacity, that is no longer a stress. That is now entering a trauma biology, and that has very different consequences on our health as adults.
And is it usually a tipping point that sets it off? Like for you, it was, the situation with Miguel, or can it, or maybe the tipping point eventually happens when you're stacking too much and not giving your body the time for repair.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, is just the stacking, because things can get stacked that are multiple factors. So what if you have a lot of emotional stuff? Well, that's definitely going to stack up. But what if you also are eating a non-organic diet and you're, drinking from plastic, and now I'm just making up stuff, right? Like, so now
Toxins.
you're
Yeah.
now you're adding on toxins that will also stack up. And now we're going to have a car accident. Now we're going to have a phone call that someone close to us has died, or they're sick, or whatever it is. If we would be able to handle that if we were more resourced, but we're already burdened down so much that one more thing is what just breaks us.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the first stories that I start my book with, is the story of Elena and the car accident.
Yes.
She gets in a car accident, and 1 year later, she's diagnosed with autoimmunity. She thinks it came out of nowhere. And I'm telling her, no, this didn't come out of nowhere. And it wasn't even the car accident. The car accident was just the final tipping point.
Mm.
But let's pull the curtain back and see what was going on over your lifetime that led you to this place where your cup was so full that there
Yes.
was no more room for any more stress, and it tipped your body over the edge.
Yeah. I actually had that question. So the trauma autoimmunity connection with Elena, because it's so that's, I think people are going to hear it and think, wait, does that mean my autoimmune condition is what we're talking about today? Are you saying likely it is?
I am.
You are. That's
I
what I
am
thought.
saying that all autoimmunity
Yes.
is connected with trauma patterns, and specifically, it is an expression of trauma biology.
Okay. And this trauma, let's talk about how it's in our cells.
Yeah.
Can you explain this? Because I think, again, other than like nervous system dysregulation, which we're understanding how the brain is wired for safety versus, safe, not safe, safe, not safe, this is like cellular, right? So talk to us about this.
Oh, so important, because as we look at what distinguishes a stress and a trauma for us, it actually comes down to ourselves. Isn't that fascinating?
I found it fascinating reading about this. Yes. It makes sense though. Is this like the body keeps the score? I have his book. I've never fully read it, but is this kind of the idea? Or is that what Bessel van der Kolk is talking about, or not really?
It's what the title expresses. He actually talks
Yes.
about very different things in the book, but it's what the
Okay.
title
Yes.
is really
That's what I think
expressing.
of. The body
Mhm.
keeps the score. Yes.
Yes. And this idea that that car accident for Elena in chapter 1 of my book,
Yeah.
why was that going to be the tipping point? It actually was not for emotional reasons. It actually was not for psychological reasons, even though those were involved. They
Sure.
were part of the picture, because for her, that car accident meant something, had a meaning, just like we attach meaning to things. What does that, look mean? You react to it because it means something, not just because it was a look. It means something to you. It means
Yes.
that. So for her, the car accident meant, I can't keep up with life. She was a
Mm.
single mom, had 2 daughters. She was trying to do good in her professional work. And a car accident was just like, I can't do it. I was barely hanging on before, and now it's all going to fall apart.
Mm.
So that's what it meant to her. But what's
Yeah.
actually happening is that at the cellular level, our cells are deciding, do I have the capacity to respond to this? And here's the crazy thing, is our cells are responding to the size of the danger that we see. And so our cells have a response that they create when we are in danger. Danger means adrenaline, and our cells say, I gotcha. I can do this. Let me make more energy for you and let me help you overcome this danger. But when the danger is too big, then our cells respond in a different way. Our cells now respond with saying, oh, I can't do that much. I mean, I can do a little bit, but a little bit isn't going to be good enough for the size of this danger. I don't have what it takes. I don't have what you're asking of me. And in that moment, our nervous system, not our brain, our autonomic nervous system, so the part of our nervous system that runs all of our automatic functions, how's that? The heart, the breathing, the lungs, the kidneys, the digestive system, all of that. That's what decides. Then it gets this message from our cells, and it decides, oh, well, if our cells can't respond, if I can't respond, I need to shut down in order to try to survive this. And so that's when we go into that shutdown step of the trauma response rather than staying in the high energy of the stress response.
Okay, it's so fascinating. I want to unpack sort of how we get to the healing, because I think people are going to go, okay, well, I'm already there, either with chronic fatigue or autoimmunity or just feeling overwhelmed, or some people might be just walking around with a constant state of hypervigilance because of their past experiences. Their body's literally never known that sense of safety. Like they're just right. Isn't that true?
Yes. And that's what autoimmunity is. Like autoimmunity is actually a message from your body that it has never felt safe to be the authentic you.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's deep. Oh my God. Okay. Okay. So we are saying this is hopeful, but let's still go into some of the challenges. You said that you write in the book that our nervous system engages one universal trauma response. Can you walk us through the 5 steps just so people kind of get a visual of what is actually happening?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got my hardcover of my book here. So I'll go to chapter 1 because I put this in chapter 1, which was different.
Intentional.
So
Yeah.
I rewrote this book 7 times. So this is the 8th edition of this book because I wanted it just right, Michelle. And I had not put the steps of the trauma response in chapter 1. It had come later. And then as I was working through it, I was like, no, it needs to go in chapter 1. Like, this is how I need to
It's
start.
foundational.
It is. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give people like that first, like, okay, here's what you want to know. And here it is. Here is how your
Yeah.
body
Just an overview though, because I know there's longer.
experiences into trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 5 steps are going to be, the first step is always a startle.
Yeah.
And the startle is so overlooked, and yet it's one of the most important steps. And the startle is that first moment when we realize, and I'm going to use the word sense, when we sense
Yeah.
that something might be wrong.
Mm.
We see someone calling us at a time that they shouldn't be calling me right now.
Yeah.
We see someone walking towards us on the sidewalk and something just doesn't seem right. I can't put my finger on it, but it doesn't seem right. Now, at this point, it's just a startle. I don't know if it's a problem yet.
Yeah.
But it's a startle.
Yeah.
If we confirm that it's a real danger, now our body is going to escalate into the stress response. Now, this is where we have the full on fight or flight. This is the highest energy that we have, and this is the strongest that we will ever be. This is when you hear of that mom who lifts a car off of her child.
I was thinking about that. You didn't write about it in the book, but that was the image I had. Where you hear those stories. That was literally the image I had. Yes, and I believe that.
Yeah, because they do. And
they do, right? Yeah.
And then they don't even know how they did it. That's the beauty. That's the power of our stress response.
Yeah.
That's what stress is. But how does that stress response then become a trauma response? What has to happen next is something has to happen that makes what you're experiencing unbelievable. It goes against everything that you believe that life should happen. It is shocking, and it is so shocking that it shocks you. It stuns you.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
But it's also something that's unbearable. The sensations that it creates, whether that's fear, anger, grief, is so big that you don't think that you can feel it and not fall apart or die.
Yeah.
The other elements of the trauma response are just this idea that you are trapped,
Yeah.
and powerless.
Mm.
Sometimes we are trapped by our own emotions, right? So for me, for example, with the adoption, the grief, I was trapped. Like my body is feeling the grief. I can't run away from my body. So that was for me feeling trapped and powerless, and also very alone, very alone.
Mm.
When we feel that, that's the next step, and it's called hitting the wall. Hitting the wall means that there's nothing else that you can do to overcome the problem.
Okay.
You, at that time, are not strong enough. You're not smart enough. You're not enough. And it's the reality. There's this huge problem in front of you, huge danger, and you're no match for it. And that is when our body will say, it's not worth the energy to keep trying if there's nothing else that I can do. There's nothing else that I can do to make this bad thing stop.
Mm.
And in that moment, our body has a very unique physiology. It's the step of the freeze response. This is a common term. It's often lumped with fight or flight, but we can see that no, it's very different from fight or flight because we have to hit that wall first. And the freeze is this moment where the panic is so high because we're shocked. We're stunned. This was not ever supposed to happen. This is not what is supposed to happen to me or to anybody in life. And that shock stuns us into a momentary paralysis.
Wow.
Now, oftentimes that paralysis is just something that we feel inside. It's not something that other people would even notice on the outside. So then the body goes into the shutdown because that shock is only temporary, and then our body can't sustain that. And so it collapses into this awful feeling of giving in and giving up. That's what it feels like. Now, from a medical standpoint, it's actually the best thing that we can do to survive that. Because at this point, my best survival strategy is to conserve energy.
Yeah.
To use up my energy.
Yeah.
And so it's surviving by surrendering.
Mm.
It's just that surrender feels awful because it feels to me like I'm giving up. I'm giving in, and there's so much shame. Shame is always a part of a trauma response. And realizing, helping us to understand that all of those feelings and all of those thoughts that happen, they're just part of the trauma response. They're just part of the trauma response. That is what the trauma response does. It's what it makes us feel. And so when we recognize that we're in that place, for me, it's been helpful to just kind of say, oh, isn't that interesting? My body has gone into a trauma response. It's not that I actually am that ashamed of myself, even though that is how I feel right now. Yes,
Yeah.
it's how I feel right now, but my feelings and my thoughts are actually just a message to me. It's information. It's just information. The information that I'm gathering right now, my body was just overwhelmed by what just happened. And it's gone into a trauma response. And I need to tune everything else out because I've got to go inside and tune into myself.
And is that how we finish the cycle versus getting stuck in it?
That's exactly what we would need to do to finish the cycle.
And
So
most of us aren't, though. What are we doing instead?
we don't like to feel that way. So that's
Yeah.
just it. We avoid feeling it. We avoid even looking at our problems. We try to distract ourselves by staying busy and working or whatever other distractions that we can find. We numb it with food, exercise,
Work.
or work. We mask it. We go to practitioners that say, hey, I have this health problem, not realizing that no, it's not really the health problem, it's a nervous system problem. But I don't want to look at my nervous system. I don't want to feel my nervous system because I'm still afraid that if I were to feel that, I would fall apart.
Yeah. You feel like it would be like a tidal wave that would just knock you out.
Exactly. Exactly. So I feel like I have to keep that at bay just to be able to function. But then that's exactly how we stay stuck in just surviving by functioning. Even now as adults, we look at, well, then what's the solution? The solution is
Yes.
spending less time in
Yeah, I was
overwhelm.
spending
How
less
much,
time in overwhelm.
yeah, how much time? How much time does someone actually spend truly feeling safe versus how much time are they spending in stress or in overwhelm?
Yeah.
Most of the women in your audience, I would gather, spend a lot of time in stress, spend a lot of time in overwhelm. And some of them perhaps have never truly, truly felt completely safe to be themselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think absolutely. Um, s- Before we go to solutions, I'm going to one other concept because it does tie into the nervous system, and I imagine connects to the somatic work that is part of the healing. You talk about a concept called neuroception and capacity versus demands. So, can you break this down a little bit too? Because I think understanding what's happening and how our body goes into survival mode and like the more data points people have, we can then just like give them maybe some places to start on the hopeful side.
And this is where we can bring in the hope because we
Okay.
can change our sense of capacity
Right. Yes.
and we can change the sense of the size of the danger of the problems that we're facing.
Okay. Perfect.
So, neuroception, what an interesting word. This is the combination of the nervous system and its perception. So, neuroception, nervous system perception. And it's the idea that your nervous system is like a dashboard on a car. It's collecting information about how much fuel do you have in the tank, how much oil do you have, how dirty is that oil, what is the tire size like, what's the tire air, like it's collecting all of the important information for your car to be able to drive down the road safely.
Hmm.
And so our nervous system, again, this is our autonomic nervous system, is collecting all this information all the time in the background. And it has a calculation that it's making then. And that calculation is, do I have the capacity to do what's demanded of me right now? Well, I don't know. What's being demanded of me right now? Well, right now I'm talking with Michelle. Okay, so my nervous system is saying, do I have that capacity to be really talking with Michelle and be connected and be engaged? Or do I not feel like I've got the capacity and I'm going to be a bit disengaged? I'm going to be a bit disconnected because I'm needing to save my energy. So it's
Mm.
this constant background calculation to see, do I have the capacity for what is demanded of me right now in this moment?
Okay.
So let's take then one of your audience members, a female. Shall we say that she's a working mom and she is, it's a Thursday and she's got a dinner party on Friday and she's starting to stress because she's got to do all this planning and hasn't had time with all of the kids going back to school and the busyness to actually plan. So here's a demand. You've got to plan the dinner tomorrow night. You've got to plan, you've got to buy the food, you've got to prepare the food, you've got to also do all this other stuff that your kids need and that work needs and that your husband needs, and forget yourself because you can't have needs. So we're going to just have that. So that's stacked, right? Like here's your stacking of all the demands that are on her. And your nervous system is going to be like, do we have the capacity? Well, I don't know. She's been eating junk food. So she doesn't have the nutrients. She's low on magnesium. Her zinc is also running low. Oh, I'm finding some toxins. Oh, yeah, that's working against her. You know what? We don't have the capacity.
Hmm.
And so at that moment, her nervous system is going to say, we don't have the capacity. And what she will likely do, knowing her, she will say, I don't care what you say. I'm going to make this happen. And so she goes into a stress mode in order to get it done.
Yeah.
But then what's the cost? That stress response actually doesn't just stay as a stress that allows her to then come back. She goes all the way into overwhelm.
Yeah.
And part of it is, well, what will they think about me? What will they think about me if they come over and I actually haven't made dinner? What if they come over and they see the dirty house? Oh, shoot, I've got to actually clean the house too. Not just prepare the food, I've got to clean the house too. And all of a sudden, she's starting to feel overwhelmed.
Mm.
And that's the overwhelm that we're talking about. That's the overwhelm that so many of us live in because of our neuroception that says, I told you you didn't have the capacity, but you went ahead and pushed through anyway.
Yeah.
So then what we are able to do then is, now that we see that, oh, that overwhelm is just a shifting of our nervous system, when it sees that our capacity is lower than the demands placed on us, I can decrease those demands that are placed on me and let me build my capacity. And the two of those are the levers that we have. And we each have those levers. To some degree, you may not be able to decrease certain demands in your life, but you can in other ways. You can decrease just the number of decisions that you have to make every day. Even just picking out your clothes for the week ahead allows you to not have to make that decision in the morning. That's one less demand on your nervous system. We don't have to decide that. Every decision takes energy. So there are ways in which we can decrease the demands on us. And we also want to look at, but how do I also build my capacity?
Yeah. Can you give us like 2 or 3 examples of
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes. So there are so many ways to build our capacity. There are biological ways. So we can change our diet. We can improve our sleep. We can align with the body's natural rhythms of getting natural light in the morning and blue light blockers in the evening. So we can align with our body's rhythms. We can be finding the right diet for us. Some of us need more protein. Some of us do better on a keto diet. You got to find what's best for your body, but that is a huge way to build one's capacity. What about doing labs to assess your nutrient
I was going to
status?
ask you about that because you mentioned with one of the case studies that you did in the book that she was like low in certain, even electrolytes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that seems important, but
Right, exactly. That seems important. And
yeah.
yet, how often do we actually think about that when we're experiencing emotional overwhelm? When we experience emotional overwhelm, we're usually like, which person is stressing me out? We're not thinking like, which nutrient am I deficient
Yeah.
in?
Am I deficient in, maybe I need some B vitamins. Maybe I'm low in
Exactly.
magnesium. Yeah.
It is, it really does come down to that, because if you had all the nutrients, you'd be able to tolerate the stressful people in your life better.
So what are maybe some labs we would check?
Everything, Michelle, everything. I mean,
Literally.
everything. So however much money you're able to put towards labs, test everything,
Yeah.
everything. One of the micronutrients is one where you would actually be able to see not just your blood levels, but your cellular levels, which is what we
Yeah.
want to know, because it can be in your blood, but still not getting into your cells. And it's your cells that need it, because your cells make the energy. So this is where I use micronutrients specifically to test the cellular levels of different nutrients. Magnesium is one nutrient that is probably a safe thing for everyone to start taking, and is one of the most needed things for them to be able to take.
Yeah.
Magnesium is one of the most common deficiencies in the Western world. Magnesium, of all things, magnesium. And it's directly related to stress. So the more stress that you're in, the more your body uses up
Makes
magnesium.
sense. Yeah.
And then we're not replacing it. And so this is where a regular diet, or even a very healthy diet, will not be enough magnesium if you are in stress. It will not be enough. You need to be taking supplemental magnesium to just replenish what your body uses up when it is in stress response.
Okay. And if you are in that overwhelmed state, maybe even chronically, is it true that your body can't really absorb what it needs to as well, too?
This is true. This is true. And this is where we then get to really lean into, how do I support my body where it's at?
Yeah.
Do I need to take liquid supplements because my body does not tolerate tablets or capsules well? It will later, but right now that's not where it's at. My body is so burned out. My body is so shut down. It's not even able to absorb nutrients well. This is why I also can recommend IV nutrients. If you have the money, invest in yourself, go to a local clinic and do IV nutrient therapy. I still do this, even with my status today. And I'm still noticing that when I just make those regular appointments, it keeps my tank filled up.
You feel the
And then
difference.
I'm not ever at that line of, oh, I hope today nothing goes wrong because I don't have the capacity for it.
Yeah.
Right? We don't get to tell life when to be easy on us and when the next hard thing is going to be. So I always want to be ready. I
Yeah.
always want to be resourced. And this is how we do it. Us going into a trauma response has more to do with our preparation and who we were before that moment than what actually happens to us.
Say that again. That seems important.
Us going into a trauma response, us experiencing a trauma has more to do with who we were going into that experience than what actually happens during that experience.
Is it our perception or is it the multitude or our
Everything,
all of it?
everything. It's your cellular health.
Got
If
it.
you've
It's
been
if we've
taking
been
care of
eating
your
junk, yeah,
exactly,
not
exactly. If
fueling our
you've been eating
bodies.
junk, then that's
Yeah,
kind of what you can expect a junk stress response.
I see.
What about your perceptions? Because yes, if you have the perception that, oh, I'm having to do it all alone, I don't get the support that I need. Well, the next stress that comes along, it's just going to tip you into overwhelm because you already had that perception of,
Mm.
I'm doing it all alone, which means that anything more and it's going to feel too much. So our perceptions play a big role into this.
Um, Earlier when we started the conversation, you mentioned mind work, somatic work, biology work, and then repair. So just give us an example. Now, just ladies, to be clear, because even in the beginning of your book, you're like, this is not for someone who wants a quick fix. This is a process. This is like reclaiming yourself. So you got to factor in however many years of, trauma and hypervigilance or whatever, all the stress, overwhelm that you've had. There's some healing to be done, right? I'll let you speak to that. But maybe we could, and not like I said, I don't want to oversimplify what we're talking about here, but I also like to maybe give people things to play with. So what would be an example of mind work?
Yes, so important. So to emphasize what you're saying, trauma impacts us on 3 levels, which is why we will need to repair all 3 levels to
Okay.
have the level of healing that we want to have.
Okay.
So let's talk about the mind level. The mind level is our beliefs, our thoughts, which then become our behaviors and actions.
Yes.
And one of the most powerful ways that I've seen myself be able to work with my thoughts is to be able to label them as thoughts. And what I used to do is I would have a thought of like, oh my goodness, Aimie, you are so stupid. You just did this again, right? And I would hear myself say those words. And one way that I was able to redirect that is to be like, oh, how interesting. I just had the thought that I'm so stupid.
Yeah, there's a separation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I was being told, no, 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 you need to say, Aimie, you're so smart. And I'm like, but that's not what I'm thinking. I'm actually thinking, how stupid am I? So that felt too big of a change for me. It didn't
Yeah.
feel true. And
Yeah.
I can't tell a lie. So
And your cells aren't going to believe
your
that.
cells aren't going to believe it.
If it doesn't, yes, maybe for someone it would, but for you, it was not going to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a really helpful first step. First step, just the first step. And then we can do more. But that's a great first step to say, I have the thought that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
So
it's
that's
just
the
a thought.
mind.
Yeah.
Somatic.
Somatic. So this refers to using our body's senses, movement, touch as a way to shift our internal state. That's where we start. We use that to create an inner sense of safety. And then we can use somatic work later in more advanced ways to actually resolve past experiences in our life. But the first place to start is just using somatic work to create a felt sense. So the mind work is more just, hey, we're going to reframe that that's just a thought.
Yeah.
The somatic work is actually creating a felt sense. So
a hug
a self hug might be really helpful.
Or with a partner or no?
Well, when you bring in other people, it gets complicated, right? Because now
Okay.
you're also like having to monitor their nervous system and you're
I see.
wondering
And
like,
if they're not regulated.
exactly. Or
Okay.
you're
Okay.
wondering like, are they liking this hug? Or are they
Interesting.
wanting to pull it? Like it brings up all of this
Okay.
attachment stuff
Okay.
that
So
makes it
what
really
was,
complicated.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So just for yourself, being able to be like, and I don't know, maybe just with me, Michelle, you want to put your
Self-touch. Yeah.
hand over your chest, and I want you to find where is the place over your chest that your hand likes to be.
Yeah.
Experiment with that. And when
Yeah.
you find your spot, let me know.
Yep.
You found your spot?
Yeah.
How do you know?
I feel calm. I feel
There you go.
supported. Yeah.
Okay. So it's a
Yeah.
felt sense.
Yes, it is.
And when you put your hand over here on the other side, you
Yeah.
don't feel that.
No.
Exactly. So that's what the somatic work is, where we can start is just, how do I know that I feel calm? How do I know that I feel safe? Because it is a felt sense that we're going for, not I'm trying to tell myself that I'm safe when I don't actually feel safe.
And then the biology work, is that what we were talking about in terms of
Exactly.
the food and the
The
nourishment and
food,
the
the
supplements,
nutrients, the sleep,
the
the light,
sleep, the
the
light,
water, all
the
of that,
movement?
the movement, and realizing that you can't separate all three layers, right?
Yeah.
Like I split them up just because I want to be able to talk to you about your thoughts, but your thoughts are actually just a manifestation of your biology. So as we shift your biology, your thoughts will naturally change.
That makes so much sense.
Same thing with your emotions. When we actually change your emotional state to one of feeling safe right now, it changes your biology. And when we change your biology, it changes your emotional states. So they are all so connected. We can't actually separate them. And working on one changes all the others as well.
Makes so much sense. I've loved this conversation. There's so much to cover, but people can pick up the book. Is there anything, though, I didn't ask you that you're thinking I really want Michelle's audience to take away from the conversation?
I mean, I think that I'm just going to reemphasize one of the aspects that we talked about, which is it's not stress. If it makes you sick, that wasn't stress. That was trauma.
Yeah. And where do people seek out the practitioners that can help them? Is it maybe direct us to your website where people can get the book?
I do train practitioners, so they are
Oh, you
welcome to
do?
find practitioners that have trained with me. They would go to my website, biologyoftrauma.com. I have a directory there, practitioners all over the world who've trained in the biology of trauma. And then that's also where they can find information about the book, get resources with the book, and also any of the trauma healing programs that they might want to dive deeper into when they're ready.
Right, when they're ready. That's so beautiful. This has been such an amazing conversation, ladies. As you know, the show notes are on your podcast player. There'll be a direct link to all of the resources to connect with Dr. Aimie and her work and her book. And thank you for being on here today. I do feel like this is such an important piece that people want to reclaim themselves, their authenticity, and their health and vibrancy. And this seems to me like a great place to start exploring. So
It
thank
needs
you.
to. Like, if you really want to have the most vital, alive life, this is the work that we get to do.
It's amazing. Thank you so much for being here
Thank
today.
you.
Thanks.